All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakewood City Council for Monday, January 6, 2020 to order. First item of business, I'd like to invite Superior Court Judge Frank Cuthbertson up front, along with our newest council member, Linda Farmer, Paul Bocci, and myself to swear in our oath of office. We'll hide behind you. Okay.
Well, good evening. It's an honor to be here to swear in Linda and Paul and Don on the City Council here in Lakewood. There's a good crowd here tonight. I know there's a lot of family members who will be. Anyway, what I'd like to do is ask you to repeat after me. Go very deliberately. And so if you raise your right hand, please. Name. Solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States and of the state of Washington, that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington, and the laws of the city of Lakewood, and will, to the best of my judgment, skill and ability, truly, faithfully, diligently, and impartially perform the duties of the office of council member in and for the city of Lakewood, Pierce County, Washington. Such duties are prescribed by law. Congratulations. The opportunity for photographs with the judge and the family. Councilmember Farmer, who obviously has the most things. Welcome, and we want to get photos of the judge and then have family. Photo like this.
We'll step out of the way so we're not photobombing you. No. Good. And I'm good. Judge, I'll see you in the elevator. Now that we have everyone sworn in, we can move to roll call. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Goldie.
Present.
Councilmember Brandstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Member Moss. Here. Councilmember Simpson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Whalen.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Now would you all rise with me in a moment of silence in honor of our men and women serving overseas, followed by the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item of business is one that happens every 2 years after an election where we reorganize the composition of the city council by the election of the mayor and deputy mayor. The floor is now open for nominations for the position of mayor. Mr. Whalen.
I am pleased to nominate Don Anderson for the position of mayor for the next 2-year term.
Thank you, but it doesn't require a second. It's, my cheat sheet says here. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Call for the question. Will all in favor of electing myself, Don Anderson, as, or selecting as mayor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We now move to nominations for the office of deputy mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Jason Whalen for the position of Deputy Mayor.
Jason Whalen has been nominated for deputy mayor. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I call for the question. Will all in favor of Jason Whalen's selection as deputy mayor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Save money on placards. We just saved $20, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, and I know Deputy Mayor and I both appreciate the opportunity to represent you in the city of Lakewood as needed over the next 2 years. We now move to proclamations and presentations. The first item of business is a youth council report, and they were busy out in the hall the last I saw them. Mr. Bolke.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is their first meeting of the year, and they're actually working on the, no, I don't think they have a report tonight. They're actually working on their youth summit tonight with Ms. Martinez. That's what they're out there working on, so
Yeah,
I don't think there'll be any report
I saw them
tonight.
hard at it earlier, so we'll pass on that. Move to the Clover Park School District report. For this, we have Director Carol Jacobs.
Well, let me be the first board member to be the first talk of January, so may I wish you all a happy new year, and to our citizens who are here also. We really, as a board and as our district personnel administrators, we want to thank the many organizations and community groups and individuals who helped make our holidays better for hundreds of our Lakewood families and students. Of special note, a thank you to the district's anonymous donor, who again for the 32nd year donated clothes, shoes, socks, everything that a child needs for clothing in for school. This year, the donation was over 2,000 items, totaling over $20,000. For this to be going on for 32 years anonymously, it's pretty incredible. Thank you also to Caring for Kids, Little Church on the Prairie, Rotary Clubs of Lakewood and Clover Park, and the many other civics groups for their support of clothing, food, necessities, and gifts for students and for families. I did get a notice that Caring for Kids was helping families literally on December 23rd who came up with a crisis, and Caring for Kids was there, and that family was one of our students. Clover Park High School students also demonstrated leadership and collaboration this past December when students collected and coordinated a Winter Wishes program that granted nearly half of the Clover Park High School students with a holiday gift or wish. So the holidays were special for our schools, and if you had any opportunity to visit any of the winter concerts, they were almost nightly in the month of December, and it was heartwarming and exciting to see the progress that students have made in the area of fine arts and music before the holiday season. Secondly, the district we're about ready to run an educational programs and operations levy in February 2020. The school board approved the resolution to put the 4-year replacement education programs in operation on the ballot February 11th, 2020, special election to replace an expiring levy that was approved in 2016. The replacement levy is not a new tax. It replaces the current levy approved by voters in 2016 that will in fact expire in 2020. The replacement levy continues our community's investments in our students, staff, and obviously the families. While the state legislation passed to fund a basic education last year, not all education costs are fully funded. The school district relies on we still rely on local residents to renew levies to fund critical areas not funded through state basic education formulas. This area includes student readiness, safety, security, educational technology, and extracurricular activities. Approval of the replacement levy would assess no more than $2.50 per $1,000 of assessed property value and generate an average of $23.1 million for each of the 4 years, 2021 through 2024. The district only collects up to the total amount approved by voters. 8 Clover Park School District teachers have been awarded the National Board Certification. This is something that we are very proud in our district because it is an ongoing program and so many of our teachers do participate and try for it. 8 Clover Park School District teachers that earned their National Board Certification this year, and 7 teachers renewed their certification. More than 12% of all Clover Park school teacher educators are nationally board certified. And actually, we've had more than that, but we do have people who, in fact, transfer through military and things. So we are at 12% currently. The National Board Certification is an advanced teaching credential. As part of this process, teachers must analyze their teaching content, students' needs. They submit videos of their teaching and provide student work samples that demonstrate growth and achievement. At our December meeting, the Clover Park School Board of Directors maintain our current organization and officers and elected Marty Schaefer as president. I was reelected as vice president, and Paul Wagman as our board's legislative representative for 1-year terms. Becky Kelsey, we want to make a public thank you to Becky as her role of director in her Director 1 has ended. We thank her very much for her commitment to our kids and to our community. At the same time, we have the opportunity to welcome Anthony Velez, joined our board as this community will be a part of our district and District 1, as we are elected by districts, yet we represent the entire community. Winter weather reminders. The winter weather is coming. Snow is predicted next week, and I just get ready for it. Families are encouraged to plan for childcare and emergency transportation in case of bad weather, hazardous road conditions, or other emergencies that might close schools or alter school hours or bus schedules and routes. It is very important that family contact information is current in case of inclement weather. Families are encouraged to check in with their student's school to verify contact information and sign up for the flash alerts to receive the most up-to-date closure informations. Additionally, remember to drive carefully when winter conditions worsen, and we know that, the TV, as soon as the call is made, the TV channels are very cooperative with all the school districts and start running the tape of what schools are closed, what schools are on delay. The Facilities Advisory Committee is assessing the district's facilities and needs. The district's Facility Advisory Committee, consisting of parents, community members, and district staff, is continuing its work to study the school district's current and future facility needs. The committee's work worked well to inform the school board and determine future capital projects and funding needs. They have a rubric that they follow, and then they make their assessment on what schools have the greatest needs. And even though some of our schools are newer, we must make sure that all of our kids have schools that are certainly the best that the schools can be for those students' education. We have an educator networking employment event on January 29. We are hosting this networking event for educators interested in learning more about working for the Clover Park School District. The event will be on the 29th from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. at the student district offices. Some of the other notes going on, winter sports are going, basketball, Friday and Tuesdays, wrestling, swimming. It's just fun. I personally I think you all know this, I love high school sports. It's a fun event. So I hope that if you have nothing else to do, you can come out and support our students and the families and have an enjoyable evening yourself. So that's it for tonight. Any questions, comments?
Any questions for Ms. Jacobs? Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We now move back on the agenda to the first item of business, which is the Youth Council report. They were working so hard they didn't get here. So please come to the podium.
Good evening, council and all guests. My name is Lenise Kamek, and I will be giving the Youth Council report for today. Sorry we were late. We were smoothing out some last-minute details. This is our first meeting of the year. We haven't seen each other in a long time, so really busy today. We started off our meeting with a presentation by Lakewood's Choice. It's an anti-drug coalition. They go into schools, mainly Clover Park High School and Lockburn Middle School, to help prevent teenage or youth drug use and really implement better and safer choices. And they just let us know what they are about and what they do in the community. Next, we talked with the Lions Club about volunteering for the crab feed, which is an annual event that they do. And it's kind of become like a pattern that Youth Council helps volunteering, help buses, tables, and it's a lot of fun. We got volunteers for that. Next, we moved from upstairs to downstairs to focus and shift gears on the Youth Summit. We heard from one of our speakers, Christian Page, today. He's a Tacoma native, an Emmy-nominated poet. He performed for us. I personally, and along with consensus of the rest of the council, think that he was really good. And we're excited to have him. We also decided on a central name for the Youth Summit. It's called YES, Youth Empowerment Summit, which is like a cool acronym, and it gets straight to the point. Also, we went through and we broke into groups. We talked about what means of success will be for the Youth Summit, and then also how we can measure that. And then to end our meeting, we talked about how what our plans are for the planning process in our next coming meetings. And now, school reports.
Good evening. My name is Dante Ost. I'm a senior, and I'm giving the school report for Harrison Prep. So Drama held their winter play, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, from December 6th through the 8th, and we had our annual blood drive on December 20th. And many of our IB diploma program students, so those of us who are seniors, submitted our extended essays and math internal assessments, so the pressure for those things are now off our shoulders. And then we headed into winter break. And for this month, the MLK Assembly planned by the Black Student Union at our school, which is headed by Lenise Kamak, is on its way. And we are also prepping for finals as the semester ends on January 24th. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kyle King. I'm representing CP, still the best school.
Winter Wishes was an successful event. We had over half the wishes covered. Wrestling season has started, and the drama club is prepping for another play, I'm pretty sure.
And that is our youth council report. Do you guys have any questions or comments?
Any questions for Youth Council? What's the date of the Youth Summit?
It is March 19th from 9:30 to 1.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to your fine work this year. We now move to the public comment section of our agenda. This is when anyone, excuse me, any member of the public may speak to any topic of interest to the council. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The yellow light comes on, a 30-second warning, the red light comes on when your time is up. Please identify yourself by name and city of residence, such as Linda Farmer, Lakewood, Washington. The first person who is signed up to speak is Mr. Glenn Spieth.
Glenn Spaeth, Lakewood resident since 1963. I'm passing around a copy of my public comments about the project that will be at 8901 Bridgeport Way, which is going to be a 7-Eleven. I asked the last time I was here how many of you would like to have a 7-Eleven next to your home or business, and in my case, both. I've got fuel tanks that will be just feet beyond the fence from my carport and my house, and I'm on the downhill side of that, and a vent pipe. I assume it's a gas vent pipe that's just on the other side of the fence next to my property. As you can probably surmise, I'm not terribly happy with this. I didn't mind a restaurant going in. I didn't mind a drive-through. However, that wasn't allowed until this last version of the city codes were signed off by you. So this application went in before the city codes had been changed, so that as soon as they were changed, you had a project pop up. I don't know what the benefit is to the city. It's certainly not owner-occupied. It's not owner-managed because they're all foreigners that work these 7-Eleven stores. They're going to be a great target for robberies, drug deals, shootings. We've already got that on the gas station kitty corner from the existing new build. We had a shooting there last year where a bunch of shots came through the businesses on the other side of the street, Howard Wellborn's businesses. I'm going to be defending my property for as long as I can, and not happy about this kind of a situation. A restaurant, that's fine. Drive-through, restaurant, that's fine. But 7-Eleven, I consider the worst option that could be done next to me. I've already got enough problems from the skate park, vandalism, cars stolen, all kinds of things. Thank you.
Next person signed up is Mr. Dennis Haugen.
Dennis Haugen, Lakewood, Washington. Since 9/11, the United States has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars trying to shore up our borders, to keep terrorists and whatnot out of the country. But suddenly when Trump became president, in my opinion, the opposition party went completely nuts. Hatefulness, jealousy, vengefulness, anything to try to stop Trump from being effective. And he is effective. And he is competent. And he does put down goals. And he keeps reiterating them. That's what a public official is supposed to be. Okay? Whether you like him or not, or no matter what his personality is, he gets the job done. Even with all the vengefulness, hate, gossip that goes out against him. It's caused me to take a serious look at the oath of office. What do these people do when they raise their hand and say they'll uphold the laws of the United States Constitution? Well, we spent a lot of money trying to stop Trump from doing his job with frivolous lawsuits. Then we passed the sanctuary state law. What's that all about? Does that make sense to anybody? That if you're a law enforcement officer out there, you should have the tools? If you pick up somebody for a crime, the computer should tell you right away where else he's wanted and what he's wanted for. You shouldn't be taking any more risk than that. But the people who hold responsible, I'm going to read their names. Kilduff, Levitt, Morgan, Convoy. Is it Convoy? And then what's that other guy's name? Kirby? They all voted for a sanctuary state. They're all friends of Linda Farmer. Friends of Linda Farmer. I hope you take the oath of office seriously. Thought about it seriously. I mean, the other people were here before you were. But all your friends? I don't know. You know, but any way you look at it, Trump is doing a competent job. And even with, it's like a football player, everybody hanging on him, he's still heading for the goals, he's still getting things done. And I hope it's a landslide in the fall.
Last person on the sign-up sheet is Carrie Hills. Welcome, Linda.
Mayor, council members, my name is Kerry Hills. You probably all know I'm here to talk about your support or the vote that's supposed to come shortly in regards to the school levy. I encourage you guys to really think about voting no. I think it's important that you vote no. A couple of things that are being passed out to each of you. The first is the voter pamphlet information for and against statement. So you guys can take a sneak peek at why you should not support this levy. Down on the bottom on the for statements, Mr. Bob Warfield is one of the authors for that statement. On the next page, you'll find from the Suburban Times, I made a comment, he replied to my comment. In paragraphs that are marked in red, 2 and 4, he indicates where the Edmonds School District is. And then in paragraphs 3 and 5, he indicates where Clover Park stacks up against Edmonds School District. As you can see, Edmonds School District is outperforming Clover Park School District significantly. So my concern is there has been a levy for the last 20 plus years. With all those additional dollars funneled into the school district, we have not gotten the results that we need to see from the system itself, okay? We heard earlier tonight someone say this is not a new tax. This is a new tax. That's why it's requiring a new vote of the people. If it wasn't a new tax, we wouldn't have to re-vote on it. So we do vote February 11th. I strongly urge you to not vote for it. The one last thing I just want to touch on and kind of make an analogy. As the city council, you guys are responsible for running the city. I've said before, 47% of the kids are achieving their standards. If the city itself, only 47% of the time, achieved the standards of getting building permits out, of having police respond to crimes, of having the Parks Department, only 43% of their events went off successfully. As council members, I'm not sure how you would feel, but I'm sure the community would have some concerns. That's what we see at the school district level. 47% of the kids are meeting the standards, and something needs to change. More money is not going to fix it, and we need to vote no. One last thing, Councilmember Whalen, last time we were here, you said you wanted to get some additional information from OPI. I don't know if you got it or not. You said, I think there's been some improvement. An improved F is still an F. Thank you.
That's all the people who have signed up to speak at public comment, but that doesn't preclude you from speaking. If anyone else wishes to speak at public comment, please come forward and queue up behind the microphone so that we can take you in sequence.
Just an inquiry, will there be a comment period during the resolution?
No.
Okay. Then I would like to speak.
We know you, but please identify yourself.
Yes. My name is Malcolm Russell. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Lakewood, born and raised. I've lived here over 50 years now. I'm a product of our public school district here in the Clover Park School District, Park Lodge before they closed it down, went to Idlewild, Hutloff, and then Clover Park. I rise to speak in support of the levy for our local school district. I had the honor to draft the pro statement for the levy measure, and in that I got to see the opposition's comments. And most of those points related to test scores, as we just heard about, and teacher pay has been a lot of the comments as well. While the points have little to do with the focus of this actual maintenance levy, I think they do deserve some mention. And one of those is that we have special demographics here in Lakewood. We're a special community, and special demographics come along with that. For one, we have one of the most diverse student bodies in the state of Washington. A lot of that's related to Joint Base Lewis McChord, kids coming in, kids going out. Also, our approximation to transit here. And starting and stopping at several different schools can be a challenge for students, academically, socially, friends, extracurricular activities. So that's a real challenge to have such a diverse school district for academic performance. Also, our community is one of the most economically diverse communities in the state of Washington, with a lot of affluent households, a lot of well-to-do people, and also people not doing so well. So the diversity of our economic makeup is quite diverse, from houses on the lake to former housing projects over by South Tacoma Way. And because of this affluent mix of our community, we have a lot of kids that get an advantage. They go early education, they get private tutoring, they get early private school, and they have an advantage going into the public schools. But unfortunately, because of our economic diversity, a lot of these kids are actually moving on to private schools instead of participating and investing in our local public schools. So those are 2 points I'd like to address related to test scores as far as the challenges that our school district faces. So you combine the high transit student body and the affluent nature of our diversity in our community, it leads to a couple points. One is that we have special challenges, so we have special needs. So when our focus of our opposition is that we are low test scores, there's a reason for that. When the focus is, why our kids are underperforming, there's a focus for that too, and those are 2 explanations among many. Second point is, by all measures, our teachers in Lakewood are paid the average salary for state workers in teaching. Given the unique challenges that our teachers in our district faces, I think they probably deserve more. But this measure is not about paying teachers. This measure is about supporting our students. It's about extracurricular activities. It's about school security. It's about school safety officers. It's about counselors. It's about sports. It's about music. It's about enriching the lives of our students here in our community. And that's why this levy is so important to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at public comment? Does anyone else wish to speak at public comment? If so, please step forward. Seeing none, I declare public comment closed. We now move to the consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of December 9th, 2019. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of December 16th, 2019. C, approval of payroll checks in the amount of $2,775,972.80 for the period of November 16th, 2019 through December 15th, 2019. D, approval of claims vouchers in the amount of $1,685,271.72 for the period of November 19th, 2019 through December 18th, 2019. E, motion number 2020-01, authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce to accept a $100,000 grant for the creation of a Lakewood Station District Subarea Plan, Planned Action, and Hybrid Form-Based Code. F, items filed in the Office of the City Clerk. 1, Public Safety Advisory Committee meeting minutes of October 2nd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there any item which any member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to the regular agenda, public hearings and appeals. Madam Clerk.
This is the date set for a public hearing to consider the vacation of the eastern 70 feet of Walnut Street Southwest right-of-way east of the intersection with Langlow Street Southwest.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am Frank Sawatsky, representing Public Works. Mr. Ward Melby has submitted a request to vacate a portion of Walnut Street Southwest east of its intersection with Langlow Street Southwest. The right-of-way is abutting property owned by Mr. Melby as noted on the vicinity map. On the vicinity map in your package, the larger area outlined in blue belongs to Mr. Melby. Mr. Melby proposes to incorporate about 3/4 of this approximate 4,200 square foot section of right-of-way into his property, with the remaining 1/4 being incorporated into the Ball property, which is also abutting Walnut Street Southwest at the proposed area of vacation. The receiving landowners plan to utilize the land to increase their properties. The Ball property on the vicinity map is outlined in yellow. The area to be vacated is the yellow square that's hatched. A property appraisal has been conducted in 2019. The appraisal value of this land is $37,800 or $9 per square foot. This land was originally dedicated to public use as Walnut Avenue by the Lake Grove Plat in 1907. Walnut Avenue was originally laid out to intersect a proposed Pennsylvania Avenue on the east edge of the area to be vacated. The proposed Pennsylvania Avenue has been vacated in its entirety by previous actions. The part of Walnut Street Southwest identified for the proposed vacation does not connect to any other street or alley. It cannot be extended to connect to any other street, and it is surrounded north, east, and south by the proponents of the vacation. On November 18th, 2019, the City Council passed Resolution Number 201920, setting a public hearing regarding the proposed vacation for this evening, January 6, 2020. Notice of this public hearing was published in the Tacoma News Tribune. A placard was posted on the site, and mailers were sent to property owners within 300 feet of the proposed vacation area, along with local utility companies. Staff has not received any written objections to the proposed vacation. Lakewood Water District, Puget Sound Energy, and Pierce County Sewer Division have all expressed the need to maintain easements on the property for utilities maintenance. Staff has received phone calls with concerns about storage of recreational vehicles, commercial vehicles, construction materials, accessibility for emergency vehicles, and a general unsightliness of the property. Recommended conditions for the vacation are listed in the staff report. Staff recommends council hold the public hearing this evening. Staff will then prepare an ordinance for the City Council consideration at the next regular council meeting. Thank you.
I have a question. There's what I'd call a keyhole property in between the two properties abutting the lake. Now, recognizing that that property does not necessarily have a right to purchase in a vacation like the abutting property owners, it would appear logical that they have to gain access through one of those two properties. Normally, that would be by an easement. But normally, also, the easement would only go out to the public right-of-way. I'm concerned that in whatever we do, we make sure that we don't create another problem by landlocking that property through the vacation and not taking their interest into, they may not realize that they're going to get blocked off. So some accommodation needs to be made or confirmation needs to be obtained that that property will still have access to the public right-of-way through a legal insurable access.
That keyhole property is conjoined with the proponents. However, recognizing the need, as you state, we can make an easement as part of the agreement so that in the future, should that property be sold off to a third party, they will still have full accessibility.
If it's the same owner and they're consenting to it, I'm not concerned because they can give themselves an easement later. I just don't want a third-party owner to get locked out inadvertently. So,
Understood, sir.
thanks. Any other questions? Well, we now move to the public hearing. Testifying at the public hearing is very similar to the public comment section of our agenda. You would have 3 minutes to speak. 30-second warning comes on when you're as a warning, and 3 minutes is indicated by the red light. The difference, however, is that the topic is limited to the vacation of the eastern 70 feet of Walnut Street Southwest right-of-way east of the intersection with Langlois Street Southwest. Person who is signed up to speak is Mr. Kurt Springath.
Yes, my name is Kurt Spingath, and I live at the 7704 Walnut Street, which is that third property you referenced a little bit ago. And so the Bal property, B-A-L is Bal, that's the one that shows all the way out to the right-of-way. The Keyhole property, so the Bal property is 7706, the Keyhole property is 7704, but both of those properties are owned by the three sisters that inherited them in the last several years. So it's a property owned in common. The only problem we would have is if there was, like you said, if there was a need to sell one or the other property, it would leave one without access. But at this point, with the Bal property taking part of the farthest, was at the farthest north portion of the easement that's going to be vacated, that would still satisfy the access for both those properties for the time being anyway. So that's all I have. I just wanted to make sure that both properties were involved with Ward Melby's properties, and what I heard on the description by the city representative, that's being taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the people who've signed up to testify at the public hearing on the vacation in the eastern 70 feet of Walnut Street Southwest right-of-way east of the intersection with Langlois Street Southwest. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify at the public hearing? Is there anyone else who wishes to testify at the public hearing? Please step forward.
Mayor, members of the council, Joel Kessel, resident of City of Lakewood, and I am the applicant representing my client, Ward Melby, in this proposal to vacate. I would just like to reiterate that both of those properties, including the one that appears to be landlocked, or whatever the term you may want to use, are under common ownership, as Kurt said. The vacation of the right-of-way does not create the issue that concern has been expressed about as far as access. I just want to emphasize that that exists today. It's not a function of vacating the right-of-way. And if there hasn't been an easement recorded to date, maybe there has been and we're just not aware of it. But that's certainly something that the family could take care of and not be a matter to be tied to this request to vacate the right-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to give testimony at the public hearing? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at the public hearing? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing closed. We now move forward to resolutions. Resolution number 2020-01, Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-01, expressing support for proposition number 1, Clover Park School District number 400, Replacement Educational Programs and Operations Levy, coming before the voters on February 11th, 2020.
For this, we have Ms. Wachter.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, Heidi Ann Wachter, City Attorney for the City of Lakewood, and I am the presenter on this because it's strictly a legal procedural question. The council in a past meeting held a public hearing, and that satisfies the procedural requirements for taking a position if the council should wish to do so, and they do that in the form of a resolution. The resolution in your packet is a resolution in support of the proposition. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions for Ms. Wachter? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I will move resolution number 2020-01.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Wolke, seconded by Mr. Whalen, that we adopt resolution number 2020-01. Is there any discussion by council? Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before this evening's meeting, I was talking with Councilmember Farmer, and she stated to me that in her observations of the council before she took her position this evening, that she realized that all of us play a role. And I told her I thought that was a very intelligent and astute observation of this council. And I told her, and she's smiling because she knows what I'm going to say, that on this council I play the role of the devil's advocate. The devil is here. And that also is my way of telling Councilmember Boki that I have broken his New Year's resolution that I would not talk much this year. I told you. Now, getting serious here. There is no doubt in my mind that education is, along with property rights, the fundamental block of democracy. I spent almost 30 years in education. I know its power. I know it can raise people up. On a personal note, I plan to vote in favor of this resolution, not of the resolution, but of the levy. But that's me personally. That's not me necessarily as a council member. And as I listened to last December 16th's public hearing, I kept thinking of something stated by a young lawyer who was defending 7 British soldiers in a court in Boston, Massachusetts in December of 1770. That lawyer's name was John Adams, who became the second president of the United States. And in his defense of those 7 men, whom, by the way, were acquitted, he stated, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or our dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." And as I thought about this resolution this evening, I began to struggle, because it should be, for me, a former college professor who taught history, it should be a slam dunk, and it is, personally. But on the other hand, I have a problem with this. And so I'm going to take a few minutes of your time to lay this out. I heard comments in that public hearing about the superintendent of the Clover Park School District and its board. I have written about the superintendent. And in my interviews about him, I learned a great deal. How many of you know that that man takes time out of his life, not just his day, but his life, to mentor at-risk children? Now, when I found that out, like a good journalist, I dug around. He does. How many of you know, and I've had the opportunity to work with a number of board members, Carol Jacobs being the one that I've worked the most with, no matter when and how and where and why I disagree with her on some things, I cannot fault her for her belief that children are everything. I don't think I've ever sat through a meeting where she hasn't said that. Or when Becky Kelsey, then last night that she was serving on the school board, I walked over and talked to her and I asked her, I said, "So what's next?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to finish my education and I'm going to teach." And my comment to her was, well, that should be an interesting, because you've got this experience as a board member, and wherever you go to teach, you're going to have that extra dimension. And she looked at me and she says, "John, I have 5 children. I care about them and I care about every other child." So when I hear comments about how the school board or how the superintendent are somehow supposed to be held personally accountable for the tax money spent, that's nonsense. Oh, and did I forget to mention that when I retired from teaching in 2018, I wanted to do something a little different. And so I quietly substitute taught in the school district. And the only person in the room I mentioned this to, I think I mentioned it to you, Carol. I spent a year in the high schools, in the middle schools, and the elementary schools. I can tell you how hard those people work. Because as has been pointed out, some of those children come to school with a lot more on their shoulders than they should have to bear. And so you can see where, on one hand, this could be a slam dunk as far as me saying, by all means, let's move forward with this resolution. And yet, how many times have I heard it said in this room that people do not move to Lakewood, Washington when they see the test scores of the Clover Park School District? Yeah, that's a stubborn fact. And the folks that speak about we need to put money into this, I don't disagree with it. But then again, when people say, listen, do we not see some sort of improvement, some sort of return on this investment in our children? That's a fair question. And sometimes it seems to me it doesn't quite get the answer it deserves. And so as I pondered this since that public meeting or hearing that we had on the 16th, I started to do a little more research. and I went to the standard operating procedures page of the Clover Park School District Board. And there's a section here called accountability. And the first sentence reads, "We are accountable to the public for the decisions we make and for the quality of our work." So am I. So am I. And sometimes I find myself thinking, maybe it's just that Midwestern orneriness about me. If I have to do this work, why should you need me to help you with yours? You are an elected official. The board members are elected officials. They can speak out just as eloquently, if not more so than I do. Remember that little dust-up we had about adult family homes in Lakewood? Who wrote the guest editorial to the News Tribune? I did. So why can't the school board do the same thing? Why can't you make your message clear to the public as I am making it to those of you in this room tonight? As I told one person, if I think you're an SOB, I'll look you in the eye and tell you you're an SOB. I won't just, no. And so what I would like to ask, and not of my colleagues, but just to rhetorically ask, you want this levy? Then work for it. And that's a fact too. And so, Mr. Mayor, I will conclude by saying that when you ask for my vote, I'm going to abstain. Because while privately, when I get my ballot, I'm going to vote for this. Because I too believe that, yeah, it can look like throwing money at a problem, but by God, if you sat in some of the elementary schools that I sat in and you listen to half the student body talking in Spanish and you know those kids are hungry by lunchtime, you're not going to say, no, I'm not going to support you, kid. But on the other hand, there are other responsible individuals in Lakewood who I think need to step up. So, Mr. Bear, when I vote, I will abstain from support or denial of the resolution. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Whalen.
I just want to make a few comments about it. I was one who asked for the additional materials from the district on the test scores because that was one of the measures that were presented to us in public comment as a basis for perhaps declining support for the district's levy in this resolution before us. And we did receive from the superintendent, Mr. Banner, a lot of information in response to the issue that provided kind of a detailed comparison of the Clover Park School District with its peers in the areas of proficiency, academic growth, and graduation rate. And I think you all have seen that, and it does reflect that the statistics aren't as we might hope them to be. And importantly, as Councilmember Simpson points out, they're not as representative as people moving into our city would hope them to be. But we know that there's been progress made over the years, and I just want to offer a comment. I'm going to support the resolution. I personally, my family, will support the levy. But I have to say that my hope for the district, and I'm involved in the community engagement leadership team, my hope for the district is not only that they move beyond the levy, it's passed successfully, but they change not only the culture, but the attitude, because it's too often communicated through the statistics perhaps, and perhaps through the information that we receive, that Clover Park School District is what it is because of the diversity of its students, because of the poverty level, because of the 74% free or reduced lunch. And I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I respect it. But I think there's something different from telling it like it is, this is who we are, versus saying this is who we can and perhaps should be in the future. Because the district and its employees are very capable, they're very hardworking, and they're doing, I think, the best they can to move the needle for many of these families who need it. But I think sometimes if we can change the focus on, well, it is what it is because these are the cards we're dealt with, I think that's okay, because we can say, yes, these are the cards and these are the students and these are the families we're dealt with, but we are going to make them much greater than they are by being a part of the Clover Park School District for however long they're going to be here, whether it's K through 12 or K through 8. So voting against the replacement levy, or at least voting against a resolution in support of it, I think potentially sends the wrong message that this community doesn't recognize the progress or the values that have been instilled in the district's leadership over the last few years. And I think that they've made great progress. Who we can be or who we should be. Test scores can reflect something, but a community's support or lack of support of its schools reflects another. And I think that not supporting the levy, which indeed is a replacement levy, sends a wrong message to those who may come to our community looking to establish a new business, to build a new family relationship, to buy a home, or to raise their child. It reflects a lack of interest or concern and investment, and I'm not willing to do that. I want to invest in the community.
Ms. Moss?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I've observed is that when we're on the outside looking in, we don't see the true picture. I've been on the inside working with some of the teachers and the students, and I see the challenges that they face. I don't have children in the school district, but I support this because it's up to us to pave the way for the ones that are struggling, and that's what I'm willing to do. For the levy, I will support it. Thank you.
Branstad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution before us has to do with should we as a council express our support for this levy. And the decision about whether to do that is not a report card on how the school district is today. I'm in favor of asking the community to support the levy and expressing our collective support through this resolution, because I see that as very consistent with the vision that we enacted. And that vision is for when this community is 30 years old, 5+ years from now, that we will have public and private schools that have a solid reputation in being able to go and do that. That I also, as Councilmember Simpson said, that there is the heavy lifting to do that in our public education system falls upon the school board, the superintendent, their administrators, their teachers, and, to be honest, students and parents. But where we can express support of this levy is important, because the opposite makes it much more difficult and abandons that statement in our mission of saying that we're going to do what we can to make that an element of our community, having excellent education all the way through through pre-K through our community college system. And so, I'm going to vote in favor of this resolution of expressing the opinion to the community that the levy should be supported.
Anyone else? Ms. Farmer?
I spend a lot of my time as a communications person asking folks that I'm working with, what does success look like? And we try and figure out what the desired outcomes are. And if we are defining success solely by test scores, then we're not seeing the full picture. And I've seen, my daughter's in middle school here in Clover Park schools, and I've seen all sorts of things, all sorts of amazing things that come from kids who may not get the highest test scores, but they're going someplace. And I believe in our schools, and I will be voting for this resolution.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. In full disclosure, I have my spouse, my wife works for the district, so I won't go home tonight if I vote no. But and I've had all three of my children. In fact, I still have one child in the district. I would say I think everybody knows, and so let me talk about fully funding schools that the legislature did. The legislature did do that. They put in a lot of money, and there has been no improvement in test scores. So what we do is we have a statewide problem and pretty much a nationwide problem when it comes to public schools as to what public schools should look like, what they should achieve. There are some incredible public schools throughout the nation. Some of the best schools in the country, like Brooklyn Technical, where I had my sister-in-law went to, is an incredible school. But you're talking in a city of 8 million people, then they handpick the kids who go in there. It's difficult to outrun demographics, and I'll just leave it at that. When you have a high turnover, high homeless, high poverty, it's just really difficult to make things stick for these kids. And as a city, we're committed to helping those kids. So I can guarantee you, every night we come here, every time we come here as a city, we have to realize as a city council, we're in competition with other cities. And that competition includes the water district, it includes the fire district that we don't control. We don't always agree with their decisions. And it includes the school district that we don't control. But we need them as solid partners. Will this money be the magic money that pushes them over the top? I doubt it, right? There's going to be a lot of other work that's going to have to be done by us as a city and by them as a school district and the people in the school district. But you are in competition with every other single school district and every other single city that has a school district in it. If you don't pass your levy, people don't sit there and say, you know what, they sent a good message to those people at the school board. Boy, they told them off. They say they have a reputation of not supporting their levies. And what does that say? It means the adults in that town don't care enough. They don't care enough. But the guys next door to them, they'll pay for it. Oh, they must have better schools. So when do the schools get good? We're in competition here. You have to decide the direction you're going in. And the direction we go in is we support schools because we have always sat here and supported schools, and we have a youth council, and you go and tell those kids at the youth council that you don't think their schools are doing a good job. Those kids are great kids, and they're on their way to doing great things in this community and in this world. And I'm all in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I too am in support of this resolution. I believe that public education is a cornerstone of democracy. It's absolutely essential. My wife and I are both products of public schools. She taught in public schools for 40 years. I was a school director in another district for 4. I've seen the inside, not only through those experiences, but by tutoring weekly in the poorest districts, schools in Tacoma on the Hilltop for 8 years during my lunch hour. And I've coached in public schools. That being said, we felt compelled to send our 4 daughters to private high school for greater opportunities, and it worked very well for them. And while I've, for example, criticized some presidents for many things, I've never felt that seeing a president in Washington, D.C. with a bad school system sending their kids to the best school they can afford is a bad idea, because you only have one chance with your kids, and it distresses me that that same opportunity isn't available for everyone. If this levy doesn't pass, there will be even fewer opportunities for the greater number of students in Lakewood, and that would be very disheartening and can only lead to bad results. There'd be fewer good students, and the average test score would go down even further because people who wanted to be in band or wanted to play basketball or needed that extra advanced class that isn't available otherwise through the quote-unquote basic education funding, they'd go elsewhere. At the same time, I'm reminded of a couple things. One, from my school board experience, I worked with a superintendent who immigrated to the United States with his parents and immediately walked into a school not speaking a word of English. He graduated as a valedictorian and had a doctorate degree and was recognized as probably the best superintendent in the state of Washington when he retired. And from my coaching experience, I've never taught a kid to jump higher by lowering the bar. So while the demographics are challenging, one of the challenges is to have explanations but not excuses, to have standards and expectations that get the most out of every child. So I might not always agree. I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this resolution. And I'm reminded that elections aren't like marriages, where you say no until you find the perfect match. Elections are like public transit. If the bus isn't going exactly where you want to go, you take the one that gets you the closest. So while we may have a difference with the school district from time to time, this bus is definitely going in the right direction. So.
And it's a yellow bus.
It's a yellow bus, yeah. Any further discussion? I'll call for the question then. Will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstain.
Abstain.
Motion carries. We now move to unfinished business. Any unfinished business to come before the council?
There is none, Mayor.
New business. Any new business to come before the council?
No, Mayor.
Then we move to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. First up, I'd like to call up our Chief Information Officer, Ken White. We'd like to give you an update on a couple of pieces of technology equipment that we need to replace. And this will be coming forward for City Council consideration as part of your next regular meeting on January 21st. Mr. White?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So if you're not aware, the 2 copiers that we have in the city are roughly 10+ years old. There's one that exists in the Public Works area on the 2nd floor copy room, and there's one that exists down in the GIS workroom. Of those 2 copiers, for the past 6+ months, we've been kind of babying those copiers to get them to continue to run. Again, today we had issues in the Public Works Department where we were unable to get that to work like it should. There was multiple staff that had to go up there and address that, and I just found that out before the meeting tonight. So we're coming to you with kind of a proposal to look at replacing those 2 wide format copiers. These are the ones that are used for plans for Public Works. There's also a scanner next to it that's used to scan a lot of the documents that come in, whether it's coming in from contractors, private party, or documents that has been at the city for years since the inception. As you're aware, this year we'll start the document management project as well. And so the proposal kind of fits into that by bringing in an additional scanner that we can use in-house rather than outsourcing those costs and paying for documents to be scanned. We did an initial round of outsourcing already, and it was roughly $3,300 for 3,300 documents. So being able to have our own scanner that's high speed and efficient will cut down on some costs there as well. So The two printers that we have now are wide format printers. They're older HPs. Those printers are beyond their scheduled lifetime and their expectancy for continued operations. So we're asking to replace those with some existing savings that we had in other areas and replace them with some really nice 1800 DPI copiers that will work well. It cuts our printing time down from, usually it's about 6 minutes for us to print a page in some cases. That will drop down to 6 seconds. So staff efficiency goes up. And again, we've got the scanner sitting next to it that will allow us to scan further for more documents, especially when we get into the document management side. These printers are roughly $32,420, and we'll be using funding that was saved in 2019 and some of the other areas that we've had. And then the replacement printer, not getting into the details of them, is roughly $79.68 for those. So that's what we're asking, is just to take some of the funding that we've saved and use them to purchase new equipment.
Any questions for Mr. White? Mr. Whalen?
Thank you, Mr. White. I don't recall sitting here whether printers were on our list of capital equipment that was going to have some sort of a sinking fund replacement over time or not.
So these printers were not, they are on capital assets, but there was no funding that was set aside to replace those. So as you're aware, in 2015, we did a replacement of all of our copiers, and we own those outright at the end of 2019, or 2018, and these ones were not set aside to have any replacement funds.
Will they be in the next future budgets that you plan to present?
Yes. So we'll start setting money aside to be able to replace these. The average life expectancy is about 7 years, depending on how much we're printing. It's about the same with copiers. So our hope is to next cycle to go back and add some additional funding. These will be under the warranty by the time we get to that point, so we should still be fine.
I appreciate it. I'm supportive of it. Obviously, we need to do it. I'm thankful that we have some leftover funds from 2019 to apply to these one-time charges, but I would certainly think it's a good, prudent move to put them on the funding cycle for the next biennial budget, too.
Yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Branstetter?
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. White, in your memo to us, under the recommendations regarding the scanner, the 4450 ProStation scanner, that you made the comment, the scanner fits into the upcoming document management solution. And I'm looking for a context of upcoming document management solution. Is there another project with a price tag coming down the road?
No, not for the replacement of the scanner. So when we started talking about document management, one of the light items in there was to set aside funding to be able to outsource to third parties for additional scanning of some of the larger wide format documents that we can't do in-house. So this specifically would fit into that role. It's not for any other additional projects, although it would be used for many other things. But its main role would just be scanning of large format documents for any type of project. But it would save us down the road for the document management side as well, as we wouldn't have to outsource everything. I mean, there's some stuff that we still wouldn't be able to scan that's very fragile documents, things of that nature, that we wouldn't want to stick through that. But it would definitely fit within that project.
And what we're talking about here is replacing some items that we've had for a decade, and longer than we normally probably would have expected them to be, both the cutting edge technology that we need and actually to operate efficiently.
Yeah, so the two wide format printers have gone beyond their expected timeframe as far as usability. The scanner that we have up there is going on 6 years old. It's an older KIP scanner that was purchased, but it's not working very well. It continues to jam up when they're trying to cycle documents through there. It takes forever to scan a document. The quality is really poor. And when we start looking at document management, part of the goal is to ensure that we've got high quality documents, especially since the plan is to destroy the originals that we can destroy. We want to make sure that we've got clear documents that are within the document management system. So this scanner would give us that ability as well. So it kind of gets two birds with one stone.
So in the background section of your memo, you indicated there's 2 units, printers that need to be replaced here in the City Hall, but you discussed a unit that's located elsewhere, perhaps over at the Public Workshop. There is a single KIP unit, or is that the scanner that you're?
Yes, so the KIP, or the KIP as you pronounce, that unit is the scanner that's existing on the second floor right now. So there's 2 HP printers, one on second floor, one on first floor, and then there's the KIP scanner that is also on the second floor. So there's 3 units in total, but one is just
We're
a scanner.
acquiring 3 units to replace 3 units.
Yes, there are options to do 2 units and have 1 unit with a built-in scanner, but when you do that, the expectancy and the life cycle of that unit goes down because now not only are we scanning using that technology, we're also printing from the same unit. So we offload the responsibilities to a separate unit, so that way we can get longer life of the printers, and then we can also get a higher quality scanner that's separate. So staff can work in 2 different locations.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bolke.
Okay, help me out, because I'm a little confused. When I see wide, page wide, and then you say 24 by 36 inch prints, but are these the machines that do the long stuff when you show us the road project one?
Exactly. The minimum, the minimum you can do 24 or 36, I should have actually said probably 3 by 5 or 3 by however long it needs to be.
So when you give us those, like the Washington or the Veterans Boulevard map, that was
the
done
Veterans Project.
in that? Okay.
Yeah, and those units that we use now, they are very, very slow. So it roughly takes us 6 to 7 minutes to print a small item out, whereas the new units that we're proposing drop it down to 6 seconds, full color.
Okay, so like a 6-foot thing that you showed us before, how long would that take right now to print out?
10 minutes. So that would now take
How
us
much
about 12 seconds.
12 seconds.
15 seconds.
Wow.
And not only that, a lot of cities are starting to see requests come in for colored documents. Our scanner that we have now doesn't do color, correct? Yep. Correct. So it's black and white only, so any colored documents that we're going to scan would not be able to go through that unit. We'd have to outsource to.
But ours come out color though, so.
We print them out. Or we scan, if they're created in color, you get the electronic creation, not the actual printed out version.
Okay.
So like the PDF or whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah, it would drop it down significantly, under a minute roughly to do the page you're talking about.
Okay.
And that would be at 1800 DPI, so you could see dots down to a speckle, versus now it's kind of iPhone 11 versus flip phone.
Okay.
Basically.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. White? Well, thank you. Back.
Thank you.
More information than I can digest, but I think I have enough. Thanks.
We can reproduce it soon.
Back to you, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, I'd like to invite up Engineer Eric Swanson and our Public Works Engineering Director, Paul Busich, to give you an update on 2 major road construction projects that we are getting ready to bid out here in the next month or so. So with that, Mr. Swanson.
Actually, I'm going to speak first, if that's okay with you. All right, appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, we're going to give you an update on 2 major projects the city has undertaken over the last year. A little unusual in the past, after you gave the blessing, go forth and design projects, pretty much Public Works Engineering went and did that and put it out to bid and came back with the total from the contractors for your authorization to spend the money. Because the council has been intimately involved in both the Veterans Project as well as the Onyx Drive projects, we thought we'd come back and give you an update on where we are, since we're about 90% completed. There were some remaining items that we had yet to be finalized and designed the last time we were talking to you, and those have now been completed, and I want you to know how they turned out. We were looking at traffic calming, edge treatments, roundabout designs, and mailboxes, which had turned out to be more of an effort than we would have ever thought mailboxes would ever be. But with me tonight is Eric Swanstrom. Eric is the project manager managing the two different consulting firms on both the Veterans and the Onyx Project. And I've invited him to be with me to give you the actual update on each one of the projects and to walk you through it and help answer any questions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric at this time and let him fill you in about the rest of the project.
Thank you. So in your packet, there are two memos, one for Onyx Drive and one for Veterans Drive. The Onyx Drive project is first, but I'm going to speak about the Veterans Drive project first. So if you want to know where that's at, it's on page 141 of your packet. So just as a reminder, on our Veterans Drive project, we're going to reconstruct the entire roadway, remove the concrete roadway that's probably been there since the 30s with new HMA asphalt roadway beginning at Gravelly Lake Drive and going all the way to the entrance to the Veterans Administration Hospital. And with that, we're also going to add a shared use path along the south side of the road, 10-foot wide. And on the north side of the road, we're going to add a 7-foot wide sidewalk. We'll also be constructing roundabouts at Lake City Boulevard, Vernon Avenue, and Dolly Madison. And then lastly, we'll be reconfiguring the parking lot at American Lake Park to add approximately 40 parking stalls. So the key design elements that we've recently vetted and have come to some conclusion on are the landscaping. And I handed out 11 by 17 landscape plan earlier in the evening. Hopefully you have that. So if you take a look at that plan, we essentially broke the corridor into 3 sections. The first section, I don't know if do you guys have that? Did you find that in your handouts? Yeah, perfect. So with regard to landscaping, we broke the whole corridor into 3 sections. The first being the standard section, or what I like to call the residential section, and that extends from Gravelly Lake Drive to Kenwood, and then from American Lake Park to the Veterans Administration entrance. So it's all the residential areas that you see out there. And along that section, the concept is to group the trees near the intersections. And then within those tree groupings, there'll be shrubs along the base of those trees as depicted in the, I guess it's the peach colored, the very left depiction on that handout I gave you. And then between the shrubberies and the trees, we'll be accenting on the south side the 5-foot buffer with a different colored concrete. A lamp black is what we think will work good. And that's the same color that we used out in the Colonial Plaza in the roadway. It starts out very black, but it does fade to gray shortly or quickly. And then on the north side of that section, we'll be putting in just trees interspersed along the corridor without any special treatment, just a tree well, allowing the sidewalk to go behind the tree to meet ADA requirements. So that's all the residential areas on both ends of the projects, essentially. And then the middle section, if you jump to the far right of that handout, is the business district center, or the business district section. In that section, we've had to narrow down the cross-section so that we could fit, or so that we didn't impact the parking so much. And so in that section, there's not a lot of room for additional trees. However, we are able to save that large oak at that convenience store on the corner of Kenwood and Vernon. That's probably a 100-year-old oak that we're able to save. We'll be saving that. We'll be putting some pervious concrete, probably about 50 feet worth, in the vicinity of that oak to help preserve it. So in that section, we will only be doing low shrubbery along the frontage of the walk, and that buffer goes from 5 feet down to 3 feet in that section. So low shrubs in the front along through the business district. And then at the back of the walk, back of the wide walkway, the 10-foot wide walkway, another band of 18-inch wide black concrete to delineate the path through the business district. Because there will be some parking interaction between the path and the parking that needs to remain for the businesses. And then the last section is at the American Lake Park. We wanted to try to stand that piece off a little bit better, and that extends essentially from, what is that? The road just south of, yeah, Dolly Madison. So basically the roundabout going up maybe 100 feet in towards the business district and then fronting the actual park itself. We're gonna do a little bit, things a little bit different. All the trees around or in the parking lot, we're going to eliminate all the trees within the parking lot itself so that we can maximize the parking, but we're going to be planting new trees around the perimeter of the parking. And then the section that interfaces with the new improvements in the park, we'll be putting a minimal amount of trees in, and in those tree wells, we're going to set it off with decomposed granite to give it more of a park feel. And then intermittent between those tree wells, some low shrubbery. There's not going to be a lot of shrubbery, but there will be some shrubbery. So those are the three sections of landscaping that we're talking about. By the time you put in all the driveways and the next section I'll be talking about cluster mailboxes, there's not a lot of room left for landscaping. And so this is not a treed boulevard whatsoever. It started off that way, but we have really pared it down to cut future maintenance costs, and to hopefully give what the residents are looking for, and same as council. So cluster mailboxes. It took us a while, but we finally did meet with the postmaster, and surprisingly, or not surprisingly, the postmaster would prefer to have cluster mailboxes. It's easier to deliver. The only caveat with this road in particular, because of the ADT, the postmaster did require or request us to be able to get the delivery vehicle off the road so that they can deliver the packages of the mail to those cluster mailboxes. So there's approximately 200 addresses addressed off from Veterans Drive, so that's quite a few mailboxes. And so what we are currently going through the process of doing is finding key locations where we can set 8-unit gang mailboxes, each block, maybe 2 in a block, so that people don't have to walk so far. But one of the details in your package is a detail that we came up with that shows that we'll be swinging the path behind the gang mailboxes and combining it with a driveway so that the postmaster or the postal delivery truck could actually exit the roadway. We're giving them about 7 feet to the face of the mailbox so that they could exit the roadway and do the deliveries and then roll back onto the road. It's not, the curb's gonna go straight through those sections, but the mailman will be able to exit onto the road, onto the side, not the sidewalk. It's gonna be the mail delivery spot. And those will be distinguished separately, again, with the black concrete, so that it's clear that those locations are for the delivery person. We've also looked at the speed limit along the corridor, and the conclusion that we came to is it makes sense to keep the speed limit 30 miles an hour until you reach the first roundabout at Lake City Boulevard, and from that point to the VA to drop it down to 25. It currently drops to 25 throughout the through the corridor, probably about the same location as that new roundabout is proposed at Lake City Boulevard. So budget-wise, we currently are working with a 60% estimate, and it shows that if we construct the entire project from Gravelly Lake Drive all the way to the VA entrance, we have a shortfall of about 1.2 million. But at this percent of design estimate, we're holding back a 15% contingency, which is about 1 million. So our proposal is to bid the project in its entirety to give it a scale so that we hopefully reduce those costs. And then we'll be coming back to you once we know the actual prices and potentially be asking for a budget adjustment. But as we move forward, probably in the next 4 weeks here, we'll be pinning down that cost estimate tighter, and so that we'll be able to discuss with the city manager what is the best way. But currently, we think the best way is to bid the project as one project. So we're scheduled to go out to add in February. We might push that until the first week in March, because we have 2 projects going out to add at the same time, the next one being Onyx Drive. And we're feeling that if the low bidder, or the second low bidder for the Onyx Drive project, which we have available funds to build completely, they may want to sharpen their pencil to get this job. So we're going to offset the 2 bids by at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So that's all I have on that project. We are going to
Some questions.
likely be to construction in April, and it probably is going to be a 9-month duration project.
Mr. Whalen.
So have you guys completed 100% design at this point?
No, they're currently working on 90. The 90% will be here next week.
Well, it's fortuitous that I'm here tonight, coming from the Arts Commission meeting at
Oh,
6. So we had talked at some point in time about maybe finding in one of the roundabouts on this project a spot for potentially some public art that would be patriotic or military related, because it is Veterans Drive. They asked about that tonight because they're preparing to come up with their public art presentation and recommendations to the council in February. So one of the thoughts would be is if there are a couple of sites that might be appropriate from a public works standpoint, from site stuff, that we could either put a little note on the design that says potential location for public art. Doesn't obligate us to do anything per se, but at least it's on the design. And what it might require is just a location or 1 or 2 at Mr. Busich's recommendation. And I would ask that if we're in the design, we might at least have an opportunity to put power there in case they want to do an uplight. So that would be part of the minute detail that you would have on a plan, and that would be appreciated by the Arts Commission.
Certainly, we can do that. Clearly, one of the most ideal locations, at least in my little mind here, is at Dolly Madison, the roundabout right there at the park.
Yeah.
Because you got everybody congregating right through there, going to the VA hospital as well as going to the park. It's going to be the most visible of all 3 of the different roundabouts and probably the best location for it. We can also consider for you to think about is on all the street lights, because they're set back on the back of the bigger walk, and we have more of them because they're going to go shorter ones, making those suitable for also putting the banners on.
The banners. Why don't we do both of those? I think we'll take your recommendation on the Dolly Madison thing, at least to put it out there.
Yeah.
So you've got it on the plan, and then they'll feel pleased that there's something they can present to council come in February.
So, Mr. Bulkey.
A couple of items. First, you have, at the very end, you have a color temperature comparison of the lights. And so could you address that? And then I have another question about utilities.
We'll take it. Okay.
I'm actually going to answer that question on the lights because I don't want Eric to take the heat for my decision. And to be quite frank, the city historically has been putting in the LED lights that are 4,000 Kelvin. They are the brighter white lights. Since I've been here, we've installed almost 400. And the number one, 2 complaints I get a complaint from residents who are the dark nights, dark skies. And so we work with them not to put them up in their cul-de-sac or their neighborhood if everybody else doesn't want them. But the other biggest complaint we get is about the brightness and the harshness of the lights. Yeah. So doing some research into that, we've determined a couple different things. First and most importantly is that the studies are showing that consistently that the warmer yellow light versus the brighter white light when you're driving at night, you don't see any better with the bright white lights, because what happens is your eyes shrink. Your pupils come down because it's so harsh on you. The cities that have moved away from the really bright uber white lights at night, going to the softer lights, they're far more accepting to the community and the residents because it's what they're more accustomed to. It's nighttime. They want to have things a little bit easier on the eyes. The second thing, and this is a little bit of a surprise to me, doing some research into it, the American Medical Association is actually taking a pretty strong stance against any light that's over 3,000 Kelvin. They say jurisdiction should not be installing anything 3,000 above, because of what it does to the biorhythms and to the production of melatonin in your body, that you need to have that dim. You need to have things go dark as humans. We looked at the 3,000, 2,700. We've talked to the utility providers. They can provide the 2,700. So we were proposing that we go with the 2,700 on this route, primarily because there's a lot of residents out here. Now, when you're driving down the road, you're thinking about, can I see far enough down the road, right? The studies are showing you can. It's more about the people who are living there, living with the lights day in and day out. And we get complaints from people about it. We have to pay a utility provider to go out and put the shrouds around them so they don't shine into their living rooms or their bedrooms. The goal here is to find a happy medium that people like. It provides the light at night, and it also allows people to live with them because they're on all night long.
So in your chart at the end, or your picture at the end, right now we're putting in we've been putting in the 4,000, the daylight glow.
Right.
And your proposal on this is to go to 2,700 warm white, which looks a little bit more yellow, right?
That's correct.
In comparison. And I feel your pain because I've had to change out lights in my house and moving and I'm like, oop, that's way too bright. And I actually take them back and go to more of like what you're saying, the warm white, which people are used to. Clearly indoors, we're all used to it because that's pretty much what everybody has used through the years.
I've had the same pain with my wife. I could not
Right.
install them until they came out with a softer yellow.
Yeah.
And then they're okay.
So, okay, good. And it sounds like you put a lot of thought behind it. The other one is the standard question we would ask other utility providers. So PSE, Lakewood Water, I don't know who the electric provider is in that area. I'm hoping they've been in the discussions. Are they going to be also in there when we're tearing up the road?
Yes, so all of those utilities have been contacted. Liquid Water, PSC is the provider out there, and then CenturyLink, Comcast are out there as well, and Pierce County Sewer. So the Water District has already replaced their main probably 5-10 years ago. I don't know the exact date for the majority of the project. They've got two ends that they're currently working on tying the two ends in so that they're out of our project limits. And so that should start to occur. You should start to see construction
What do you
in the
mean
next
by
few weeks.
out of our project limits?
So basically, they replaced their main to the bulk of the corridor, but the two ends are short from where our project limits end.
Okay.
They're within our project limits, the pieces that they still need to replace. They're going to replace the pieces within our project limits prior to us getting there.
That's Lakewood Water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the power, they are relocating a handful of poles. I want to say it's like 14 or 15 poles that need to be relocated. They will still be overhead, but they are relocating those again prior to us getting out there for construction.
The newer portion, when we were in, and I salute everybody involved in getting this. Originally, this plan was going to be gravelly to the park.
Correct.
And we've now added another, and you'll tell me how many thousand square feet all the way to the hospital, or the entrance to the hospital, which I think the council is fully supportive of. It clearly adds additional costs. Can you talk about some of the challenges there? Because the road, when I go down Veterans, it's kind of like it was probably built kind of more as a rural highway almost, right? A very wide shoulders, gravel. And then you get back into there and it becomes, driving to somebody's house almost. It's clearly not. It's treated as an arterial, I guess, of some sort, but it's really not. So I'm glad it'll be brought up to standards, but can you describe some of the challenges that you have between the park and the entrance?
Sure. So really what's driving that section to feel more narrow is the amount of vegetation out there. And the right-of-way is more narrow than the bulk of the project. It goes from 80 feet along the not the central business district, but the Lake City Business District. It goes from 80 feet down to 60 feet in the residential section, and the houses are closer to the roadway. So to alleviate or to address those challenges, we've shrunk the landscape buffer between the walk, the shared path and the road. We shrunk that down to 3 feet rather than 5 feet. And then we're also putting fewer trees in that section.
So the width of the sidewalks will be the same then?
The width of the sidewalks will be the same, but the buffer will be a little bit more narrow.
Okay. Will the road be wider? Are you widening the road in there?
We're-
Or is
yeah,
it
so
just like you say,
Currently, the concrete section is about 20 feet wide, and then over the years, the county first and then us have added the paved shoulder, 4 feet, 3 feet on each side, so that you have 12 to 13 feet of traveled lane. And we'll be replacing it back with 12 in each direction. Yeah, the road section through the whole project is consistent through the whole project.
okay, thank you.
So this is probably what you guys really enjoy, having amateur designers come up with opinions, or I'll try to make it more in the form of questions. First of all, just a comment on how you can't always please everyone. Had an elderly gentleman who I know socially who approached me at an event after Gravelly Lake Drive improvement was made. He says, "I've been meaning to talk to you about those streetlights." I thought, here it comes, that harsh white light. He says, "You know, they provide just enough light through my curtains, because one's right in front of my driveway, that I don't have to turn my light on when I get up to go to the bathroom at night. It's the greatest thing that's happened in years." So you please somebody,
Yeah.
displease someone else. So it certainly wasn't the comment I was expecting. There was a constituent comment some time ago about the earlier proposed landscape plan with respect to veterans. And in looking at the area, which I drive frequently between the park and the entrance to the Veterans Hospital campus, that area appears to be, well, the 20 feet that used to be trolley disappears, and so we only have the road right away at 60 feet. That appears to be much more similar to the Gravelly Lake Drive topography, landscape situation than it does the rest of Veterans Drive. That's heavily treed, and we really didn't do landscaping to speak of when we did the Gravelly Lake Drive section. We were pushing back landscaping to widen the road and pedestrian improvements. So is there, what consideration, if any, has been given to paring down there was some implication that there was something done, but paring down the landscaping through that section, and more from a fiscal standpoint than anything, because it is heavily treed on both sides.
Yes, so we have not put any additional trees, except for, we do have some proposed at a few key intersections like Nottingham. I guess that's the only intersection along that corridor. Well, there's another one. But we can look at that closer. And that's going from 90, well, currently where we're at, to 90%. Those are the things we'll be looking at, because that is true. The amount of canopy out there is substantial compared to the rest of the corridor.
And from what I hear, the people kind of that live there
Yes.
like it. They're going to be pushing back, realizing that part of what they think their front yard isn't really their front yard.
We didn't lay it out on the table for you, but if you came in earlier, you see there are a couple of roll plots out there. And one of the reasons for the biggest roll plot on veterans is to give you a sense of the type of tree coverage that we're talking about. You see that it's really more or less focused at the intersections, and then we're trying to keep it down to a bare minimum as you go through the entire process. So take a look at that section from the park to the VA hospital. I would encourage you to think about the continuity and the look of the project. That if we have limited trees here, then we come down here and we just eliminate all the trees, We want to make sure we're doing that with express purpose and understanding on how the community may feel about that as we roll this project through. Last thing we want to do is have people calling and complaining because they didn't get their street trees, and we don't have any irrigation put out down there for the street trees.
Any further questions?
As long as we get conduit for the art, conduit for the electrical.
Conduit for the electrical. One other thing I forgot to mention, I'd like to bring up is we have, like we mentioned, we're going to the cluster mailboxes. We haven't sent that out to the community yet, and we intend to do that in the next 2 weeks here to put together a flyer and maybe a map showing where the current mailbox is and where the proposed new location will be. So stay close to your phones.
Yeah. I have a cluster mailbox. I like
Mr. Whalen.
I just saying the cluster mailboxes are a great idea if you get some buy-off on them. We have one in our neighborhood. It's the best thing because your mail's secure and
The advantage we have on veterans is a lot of the mailboxes are already grouped together in locations.
Right.
So people are used to going to get their mail, in some cases, across the road and down to the end of the block. That makes it much easier for us than if everybody had a mailbox right out in front of their house. The other thing we did is we took a look at the cost effectiveness of cluster mailboxes. The units themselves are not inexpensive. However, when we took a look at our past history on what we pay to the contractor to pull the mailbox, set it aside, then reinstall it, we actually were able to determine that doing the cluster mailboxes saved us a considerable amount of money because we're only installing brand new and they don't have to reinstall anything, and we're only going to pay for 30 of them instead of 200. So it turned out to be a pretty good deal money-wise.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Are you
Appreciate
ready for Onyx?
yes.
Onyx.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Onyx Project, we haven't briefed you for probably a year about where that project has or is going. So for a reminder, we're reconstructing the road again along Onyx from 97th Avenue to 87th Avenue, and then also from Garnet to Phillips. And the original scope of the project after we did the public outreach was to install sidewalk only on the south side, a 10-foot wide shared use path. But after we started looking at the design, after we got topographic information, it came clear that the path would work the best on the south side of the road because of the limited amount of driveways that would be crossing the path. However, the generators of pedestrians are primarily located on the north side of the road. So all the neighborhoods are primarily on the north side, and we're putting a path on the south side. So we had BCRA take a look at our estimate, or their estimate, and we determined that we could add sidewalk to the north side of the road for relatively inexpensive amount, an additional $380,000. And so we asked directed the consultant to move that direction. And so the current design is for sidewalk on both the south side and the north side. The south side we have reduced down to 8 feet with the knowledge that we're putting an additional 6-foot sidewalk on the north side. During the public input, people were concerned about speed, and so what we've included for speed control is we narrowed the lanes down to 12 feet. Currently, they're 14 feet out there, and we narrowed them down to 12 feet. And then we're also going to put some speed radar feedback signs in, 2 in each direction, one on each segment of the road, or 2 on each segment of the roadway. They also were concerned about the intersection control at both 87th and Phillips, and the traffic analysis that BCRA did found that roundabouts really aren't warranted at those 2 locations. But what we were able to do is realign the Onyx Phillips intersection so that it tees into Phillips rather than, it's probably a 45-degree skew, and it's right next to the other Onyx, which is confusing. So the graphic in your packet illustrates what we've been able to do to correct that skew, and in doing so, we've been able to add a left turn pocket for both Onyxes off from Phillips Road. Also for speed control, I forgot to mention we are going to add some raised crosswalks. There's 3 locations at 97th, 78th, and Coral Lane. Now those only raise 3 inches in height, so they will slow folks down, but they're not going to impede emergency vehicles. Now we are also evaluating cluster mailboxes on this job. Rather than having 200 addresses off the corridor, there's only about 30 residences that are addressed off from Onyx Drive, and so it's much less of a battle or task to do. We're still looking at that, and that's the section from Garnet to Phillips that we would potentially be adding some cluster mailboxes for those folks. What else do we have? The biggest concern on this project, given the residential nature and the age of the development, is the amount of trees that will be impacted for the project. So currently, they're anticipating about 190 trees that will need to be removed, most in the right-of-way. However, there are about 24 that we feel that will be in the root system, that the trees are located on private property. And so we are working with an arborist to determine whether or not we can save those trees or whether or not they need to come out. We're also looking at potential ways to mitigate or to lessen the impact. One of the things that we have done is reduce the width of the sidewalk on the south side from 10 feet down to 8 feet. And then we also reduced the buffer between the road and that path down to 2 feet. Doing those 2 things saved 36 trees, so we were able to save a few. We are working with a 90% cost estimate on this project. They're a little bit further along than on Veterans Drive, and currently the budget shows that we'll have about $100,000 surplus from this project, that's including us constructing the sidewalk on the north side of the road. And also we're constructing the last 400 feet on the west side of 87th to tie it into the improvements that were done by DSHS, the Western State Hospital, 10, 15 years ago. So that's included in this cost estimate as well. We will be out to add for this job late February, like I said, and then we'll be to construction more likely in April, and it should last about a 7-month duration, so October timeframe. And then Paul would like to add something.
I just want to add that the sequencing of the projects is important for a couple different reasons. One of that may not be entirely apparent is that this project at 90% anticipates having surplus funding. Most engineers, when they're doing their cost estimating, they want to be right in the middle of the pack as far as bidding goes. No consultant wants to be the low bidder on their own project. So with that in mind, we're looking to see if there's significant enough cost savings in this project once the project bids come in, where we can recommend transferring some of the monies from this project over to help cover costs on the Veterans Project. These are all, on this project, they're all city funds. There's no federal funds, there's no state grants. So this is our money to do with as we see fit.
Great. Any questions? Mr. Volke?
I thought I saw in here, you mentioned road reconstruction. So the portion from 97th to 87th is, you're going down to the dirt.
Yeah.
But on the other portion you mentioned in here, it just said you're gonna tear it up.
Yeah.
The other portion is just in better shape?
Yeah, so the portion west of 87th is deteriorating. It looks like there's some base failure. So meaning the rock below the road itself might be failing. So that section we are going to completely rip out and rebuild. The section east of Onyx or Garnet to Phillips is in much better condition. And so we're comfortable that we can put the curb and gutter in, patch, and then overlay the whole road.
Okay. And then originally on the north side, it was going to be like it was the curb plus a foot or 2 feet or something, some like mini, that was the one that they liked.
Yeah.
Rather than 2 6-foot sidewalks. You gave them 3 options, I think, the neighborhood. So now you're going to 6 feet on the north side. Have the neighbors, has the neighborhood been told that, or are you in the process?
No, not yet. We, again, will be sending out an informational flyer in the next week or two here. They were given options through the public input. The highest vote for the path on the south side got 14 votes, and the 2 sidewalks, one on each side, got 13. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, and then when you say 190 trees, and I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness, because anytime we cut down a tree, it's a big deal. But when I go the route, you say trees, I say trees and shrubs.
Yeah.
And in some cases in non-native shrubs. Is that what you would say, or are they Douglas firs?
They're all trees. They do range from the Douglas fir to the ornamental trees. We did go through, so the majority are less than 18 inches in diameter. It looks like there is about 150 of those that are less than 18 inches. About 120 of them are less than 12 inches in diameter. So the bulk of them are smaller, but there are some large ones. We have one that's between 37 and 50 inches in diameter. 13 between 25 and 36 inches in diameter. And those are going to be your fir, your Douglas fir, those large evergreens.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Farmer?
You guys struggle with these. Aha, there we go. So lucky me, I live in this area on the east side, and I'm super, super excited for the change to come through. I somehow missed the public comment work that happened in 2017, and so I'm wondering, again, to my council members' comment about communicating with residents and maybe making a show at the neighborhood association and doing some other things might revitalize some interest there, what with a 7-month construction period. And I don't know, do you have plans for what you'll do with the trees that are taken out?
Typically what happens is when you let the contractor owns the trees once he signs the contract. So they'll probably make some money off of them.
Gonna sell them, okay.
Sometimes they leave some for people to take, but more than likely they'll haul them off and make some money.
Okay. Just hatching a little plan. The game farm is so close to that eastern section, and the neighborhood there has really banded together, and they're really cleaning things up, and they're working on gazebos and some public areas. And so it might be a nice synergy to build some benches or to donate that, or to, I don't know what it is that we can do, but there you go.
If you know of any neighborhood groups who are interested in that, put us in contact with them. Preferably work with them so they come in and they remove the trees before the contractor comes in.
Okay.
And we just notify the contractor, we flag them so they know these are the trees you do not need to include in your bids. The really big one that Eric's referenced to, if it's in the right of way, that only comes down if there's a certified logger doing it, because we're not going to let someone go out there and just drop a tree of that size on the road.
Good call.
Okay. And they would always need a right-of-way permit, so we know what they're doing prior to their doing it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Branstetter? Last time I touched this, the screen went up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering about the difference in the two construction of the two segments, where one is a complete roadway construction where you're going to take everything out and then put something new down, and then in the east segment, you're only going to overlay. Was there significant difference in the pavement index on those two sections, or what were the factors in making that distinction for the two?
Yes, so there is a significance in the payment ratings of both the two segments, and then the BCRA did consult or hire a geotech. They did some borings and found that pavement depth was a little bit more on the one side. And again, like I mentioned, some base failure on the side, the westerly portion. So there has been some actual engineering forethought into the two different segments and how best to get a decent life out of each of them.
And so how is that going to impact the expected life cycle of the two segments? Is one going to need to be readdressed earlier than the other, or are they going to be comparable?
I think they'll be relatively comparable. The thing that's saving the east side is the traffic is half of what is on the west end of the project. And so that plays a big role in your life cycle of your pavements.
And the last thing is that it wasn't that long ago that we did some work, the overlay, I think, of 87th to 89th. But we intend to tear up that section, all those two blocks, to do a continuous project on the west segment.
Correct. It's easier when you get that involved with ripping a road up to rip it all out, rather than try to save pieces in between.
Okay, thank you.
Great presentations. We're glad to see the progress. People have kind of mixed feelings about the inconvenience, but they're always happy when it's done and they have a new shiny sidewalk in front of their house. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Caulfield.
Thanks, Mayor. A few updates, if I might. First off, I'd like to commend our communications manager, Bryn Grimley, on a couple of things. One is, if you haven't already viewed it, she prepared a look-back video for 2019, just highlighting some of the key accomplishments and activities that occurred in the year. It's about 4 minutes long, so it meets the ESPN standard in terms of the ability to people to pay attention for a certain period of time. And it's just very, very well done. As a matter of fact, we're going to be incorporating it early on here into our State of the City address as an introduction to our presentations out in the community. And then secondly, she worked with our maintenance and operations crew to do a video on snow and ice and how we react to that when we have snow and ice incidents here in town. And I just wanted to emphasize too, if the weather does turn and it gets a little cold and we get some flurries, we are prepared and ready to go. And again, just want to compliment Ms. Grimley for that and for her work with our M&O crew. We learned today that WashDOT is quickly wrapping up, or not wrapping up, but finishing the improvements or the new interchange at Berkeley Avenue and I-5, and they expect to have that open here in the next month or two. Actually, it's going to be a phased process in terms of finishing up some work in the Tillicum neighborhood as well as on the JBLM side, and then they'll be shutting down the existing, what's referred to as Freedom, the current Freedom Bridge, and then transitioning to the new one, again, probably here in the next, could be 4 to 8 weeks. And I know they've said sooner than that, but I'm just trying to manage expectations because weather and things along those lines. Today we experienced something that we have never experienced before, and don't know if other cities have experienced this, but we were getting inundated with 5 to 8 suspect email hits on our IT system every minute of the day today. The good news is our system was not breached. We have systems in place, and actually thanks to this body providing the resources for us to be able to have the firewalls and the like. We did send out notification to all of our staff that if you receive emails that you're not familiar with or suspect, either just, don't open them. And that applies to all of you as well on your iPads. Just delete them, or if you have a question, let us know, and we can take a look at it. We did reach out to a cybersecurity threat intelligence analyst who works for the city of Seattle and actually serves point with a number of agencies, particularly the statewide Department of Homeland Security, as well as the Washington State Fusion Center, which serves as point for all municipalities and local agencies, including tribes regarding terrorism and things along those lines. And long story short, they were able to identify that all of that activity was coming from Iran and Russia. So that's where it's coming from. So. But at this point in time, our systems are holding up, and we'll continue to be due diligent on, maintaining that wall there. On the economic development front, a company called Altitude Trampoline might be coming to Lakewood. They've been in and out of our offices here in the last year or two, and they have applied for design review and locating in what we call the old G.I. Joe's spot right across the street here, and. So we'll see what happens. It's geared primarily toward kids and teenagers, but adults can go as well. They have trampolines, basketball hoops, foam pits, rock climbing, dodgeball. So sign me up for that. And then Deputy Mayor, you'd be interested to know a snack bar. So, so we'll see what happens. There's a competitor organization out there that has also been poking around and perhaps locating up at the 84th Street area where the movie theater is and the furniture places are. I guess maybe the old Levitz building. So, but just wanted to give you an update on that. We've also been in contact with a senior living developer called Bonaventure, and they're interested in coming to Lakewood. They actually have a couple of products in the Puget Sound area, one in Lacey and one in unincorporated Pierce County at Meridian and 176, and they're looking to also invest in Puyallup. This is what they do is they construct retirement and assisted living centers, which is actually something that's needed here in town. They're not low-income apartments or licensed nursing care. That's not what they are. That's for, it's senior living, folks who want to downsize and things along those lines. The property that they're looking at apparently is along Lakewood Drive, and they're negotiating with the property owners, I guess, as we speak. But they're very interested in coming to Lakewood, and so if they can find a site and a location. Likewise, our economic development manager continues to work with RPAI and interested developers in having housing come out to what we call the back 40, the area behind Target and Barnes and Noble too. So those conversations have begun to pick up. Later this month, our housing manager, Jeff Gum, is going to be submitting a home funding request. That's part of our CDBG home funding dollars to the Tacoma Community Redevelopment Authority Board, who we partner with on CDBG and home funding. And it's to partner with Habitat for Humanity for them to build another house on Portland Avenue. It's a recent abatement project. And so the proposal is for a $49,500 grant or loan. We're not quite sure how it's going to come together for Habitat to build on that. And the good news is that as a part of this whole process, the city would be reimbursed for the abatement costs that we've actually incurred there. The reason I'm bringing this to your attention is because this would have to come forward for city council review, consideration, and if you're so inclined, approval. But it's got to go first through the Tacoma Community Redevelopment Authority first. We do view this as a good thing. The city council has approved this type of these types of projects in the past with Habitat for Humanity. Also, between the city of Tacoma and Lakewood, we have a fund balance of a couple $100,000 that we need to draw down. So this is a perfect project to be able to do that. We get back our abatement funds that we had to invest to scrape the property that had been previously there and was a hazard in our community. It also promotes affordable housing in our community, and it's consistent with our zoning. So we view it as a win all around. So hopefully more to follow on that. Also, the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department recently notified us that our Colonial Plaza project is a recipient of their Healthy Communities Platinum Award, which is positive. Actually, they recognized us last year for our town center, central business, downtown central business district sub-area plan. And that award will be presented at the PCRC Annual General Assembly meeting, which is typically scheduled in February. I think as you're probably all well aware now, the Congress did adopt a defense bill, the NDAA. They also approved $50 million in support of the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, or DCEP, which originated here, right in Lakewood, in partnership with Congressman Denny Heck. And long story short, the mayor and I were back visiting with Office of Economic Adjustment, who are probably going to be the organization who is going to facilitate the process and how those dollars are allocated. And long story short, it is likely that we will be back in front of this body asking for your approval to approve a design contract to design Washington Boulevard. And it would be not just Washington Boulevard from Gravelly Lake Drive, but all the way down to Edgewood, and then the Lazy S out through Northgate to the entrance of JBLM, where it turns into Northgate Road. The reason for that is we want to get this project as shovel-ready as we can, so once OEA does come out with their application process later this summer, we will be literally, if not ready to go, very, very close. In addition, we want to be squared away on our financing, which actually we already are. We want to have addressed a lot of the regulatory and environmental issues, including SEPA and NEPA, which is part of the design review. We'll be able to get a head start on that, as well as identifying any environmental impacts, which at this point in time, we don't see any, but if they are, how they're going to be mitigated. All of this results in additional points in how we compete for this $50 million. And while the $50 million sounds like a large amount of money, when you apply that across the continental United States, it goes very, very quickly, because our ask is going to be about $10 million. That's where we are, and like I said, I'm going to be recommending that we do move forward with a design contract here in the near future. And then plus, having the design completed, we've done some conceptual planning. I know a couple of years ago, the city council at a retreat, we reviewed that, so we have a start. But that was work that was done in-house, and so now we need to take it to the next level, very similar to what you just saw this evening on Onyx and Veterans Drive. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and more to follow. We were also approached by the Port of Tacoma, which has their annual Local Economic Development Investment Fund application process. In the past, we received money to do some design work for a future traffic intersection or traffic signal at Durango and Steilacoom Boulevard. They've invited us to apply again, and so we're going to be seeking $60,000 to do survey work and design work for 146 between Murray Road and Woodbrook, which is within our TIP. It's part of the Woodbrook Business Park, which is seeing a lot of development. The purpose here would be to get a head start on getting the design and the surveying done, so that when and if the private development does come in, and we do see it coming, we'll be ready to turn that over to them so that they can then move forward with the sidewalk and road improvements rather than to, having them have to do it. And so the Port of Tacoma is willing to fund that. Don't know if we'll get the funding, but we're going to apply for it and see what happens there. I know, as I previously mentioned, our police department did some traffic enforcement emphasis at 10 areas throughout the city in the month of December. And so Sergeant Frazier and his team, they dedicated 287 and a half hours to this. The result of that was, unfortunately, people still speeding, even though we announced that we're going to be out there, including the times of the day, which is the morning commute and the evening commute as well during school hours. And so they had 910 contacts, issued 918 infractions and/or citations, issued 134 warnings. There was 4 warrant arrests and two DUIs. So, this is something that we'll probably come back and look at in the next 4 or 6 months as well, and look at other areas of the city to do continued enforcement and try and get people to slow down out there. Also want to commend our police department for a particular response this past Friday evening. You might remember Friday evening was about 7, 8 o'clock. It was pretty nasty out there. It was miserable conditions. And so our swing shift received a call that there was a subject over in the Wards Lake area who was threatening to kill his 1-year-old son and pointed a firearm at him. So patrol units were able to secure the residents in the area, and our SRT, newly formed SRT, responded, as well as our negotiators. And the good news is that after several hours of negotiations, the great work by this team, the suspect did voluntarily emerge and was arrested, and there was no harm to the child. But I would like to echo Chief Mike Zaro's words to his team in that quote, "Because of your professionalism and dedication, we were able to secure the surrender of the suspect and bring it to a peaceful resolution." These are the types of things that can really go sideways really, really quick. So I just wanted to point that out to the council, that the SRT program is working, but more importantly, our men and women in uniform are doing an outstanding job out there, and this is some of the things that you don't hear about. So I wanted to make sure you did. Lakeview Light and Power is having their annual meeting, their 98th annual meeting here at City Hall on April 23rd, and we just received the notice. So just to give you folks kind of a warning order that we are a customer and the city gets 1 vote at their board meeting. And so I think in the past it's been Councilmember Brandstetter, but I just wanted to put that out there, and we have time here, but whoever wants to go to that meeting and be the city's official represent the city, just let us know. And I'll make sure, I'll pass out that ballot to you and make sure that you all have it. I think it was last Monday, a couple of Mondays ago, I had an opportunity to go meet with Sue Dreyer, the Pierce Transit CEO, and the purpose of the discussion, they're going through what's called Destination 2040, which is an update in terms of where they expect service levels to be as we look out to 2040. And so a couple of things. One is they're doing some community outreach and engagement. So I volunteered the city to help get the word out through our social media avenues and whatever we can do to assist. And also just expressed our continued support for bus rapid transit, particularly the current bus rapid transit project that they have down SR7 through Tacoma into Parkland and Spanaway. I also emphasized the next BRT, which is from South Tacoma through South Tacoma Way into Lakewood, into Pacific Highway. And at this point in time, their thought is then to hang a left at 108th. Again, reemphasized, our position that we would like to see BRT. You can go ahead and take your hard right, your hard left. Yeah, your hard right on 108th as you come in southbound. But we really want to see BRT come all the way down Pacific Highway, particularly into our underserved neighborhoods such as Springbrook and all the way down to Tillicum and Woodbrook, as well as JBLM. And I said, it's not a matter of saying that it's going to happen. I think it's a matter of looking at, will it work and can it work, and is there some value in doing that? Personally, I believe it does. haven't seen the impact of BRT when I was working up in Snohomish County. So Ms. Dreyer did commit that if and when they get to that point, that they would look at that would be something to consider. No guarantees that it would occur, but something to consider. So just wanted to pass that on. We'll also be meeting internally to look at their proposed vision, Destination 2040, and providing any feedback or impact or input on the city's behalf. And so we'll keep you posted on that. I know before the holidays I had mentioned this body having a goal-setting retreat, and we had identified a couple of dates, either Saturday the 22nd of February or Saturday the 29th of February. So unfortunately, we have several who have conflicts on those dates. So I would like to throw out Saturday, March 7th, if that would work. And if you could all please look at your calendars and let me know if that date
Just in the morning.
would work. It can be as long as you want it. It can be as long or as short as you want it. So, and then as far as your calendar goes, this week, this Friday, the 62nd Airlift Wing change of command at 10 a.m. on post. Also like to point out on Friday afternoon, for those of you who know Ted Ware, his memorial service is going to be over at the little church on the prairie. I believe it's at 2 p.m.
Friday or Saturday?
He's a great partner with the city, particularly his role and leader in the Lakewood Rotary Club, as well as partners for parks. And then a week from Wednesday, the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce is going to be hosting their annual Horizons Economic Forecast event in downtown Tacoma, and I know several of us at staff are going to be attending that. So if any of you have an interest in attending, Councilmember Moss, we can get you registered. Deputy Mayor Whalen, did I see? Okay. Okay.
What day is that again?
It's Wednesday morning, Mayor. It's 7. Well, doors open at 7. It's from 7:30 to 9. It's at the convention center.
This
Week from Wednesday.
week from Wednesday.
15th, yes.
It's at Tacoma Convention Center, too.
So, all right, so I got 3 you down.
Space
Get you down, Mayor?
down.
Okay. Yeah, they, over my career, I've attended a number of, those types of events in different counties, and I do have to tell you, the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber, they do it really well. They bring in really good speakers and economists who have a grasp and understanding of Pierce County as a whole. It's all well and good to focus on the Puget Sound, but they have a tendency to focus on Pierce County. I always find that very, very helpful and very valuable. It's a good event. With that, Mayor, that's my report.
Questions for this?
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On economic development, anything to do with the dress barn? Have you heard of anyone replacing that, the dress barn?
No, I just know that a lot of those brick and mortar companies are going out of business. I saw another note today that Pier 1 Imports is closing 425 stores. Also heard Bed Bath & Beyond, because they did away with their coupons, which I loved. It's one of my favorite stores. They are looking at potentially shutting down as well. But as far as the vacancy of, I know RPAI is pretty good. I mean, they're on top of it, trying to get, folks to fill up their slots there. But no, we haven't heard anything. They were able to secure Ulta, which recently opened, which actually is probably going to generate a whole lot more sales tax for the city than Pier 1 Imports when they were there ever did, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you.
And by the way, it's interesting, you talk about retail, because, is it really this apocalypse that's occurring out there in the retail world, or is it maybe just, is it really Amazon? Is it online? Or is it maybe what we saw, about 10 years ago, where you have just a restructuring and things just maybe shrinking because of where consumers are? And then is it part of it too that, some of the stores just aren't providing what we as consumers want? So it's kind of a lot of interesting theories out there about what's going on in the retail world. And I don't know, I don't know which one is wrong. I mean, which one is right.
All of the above.
Yeah, all of the above. So, you know, when my wife goes shopping, I tell her, you know, you're supposed to buy something, because her definition of shopping is a whole lot different than mine, but I just do what I'm told.
Any further questions for the city manager? Then we'll move to council comments. Ms. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome Councilmember Farmer to our team. Happy to have you. Friday's going to be a busy day. The city manager talked about the 62nd Elder Wing. I will be attending the change of command at 10. There's a retirement at 2, and the America's First Corps New Year's reception is at 6, and that's at American Lake Conference Room, and I will be attending that. So I have been requested by the Black Student Union at Harrison Prep to be their guest speaker for January 7th for Martin Luther King celebration, so I'll be working on that. So thank you.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to be back. I unfortunately had to miss some personal issues came up, so I missed the last meeting of the year. So I hope everybody had a good holiday. Really pleased to see the progress on those two major street items. I know we've got some more queued up for 2021. So really appreciate our public works folks going forward with that. I'm glad to be reminded of Ted Weir's funeral. You know, it was more than once my wife and I marveled at the Weir's presence at events for raising money or doing anything for Lakewood. It was really remarkable that even they got older, they were still showing up to events. Even when one of them was ill, one of them would show up to an event to show their support. So two really wonderful people, and Ted will definitely be missed. I found him to be just a great guy, and but their support for their community, and I know Partners for Parks was one of them, and he was big in Rotary, and there were a number of other things that he was involved in that he'll definitely be missed.
Mr. Brenstetter.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to 2020 and our work together. I think that there are a lot of things that are poised to take care of. I think, you know, we heard about the two major transportation projects that neighborhoods have been waiting patiently for to be their turn in line for us to get around to them with transportation projects. I think the environment in Pierce County and in the state is right for this to be a year of when efforts regarding homelessness and affordable housing are poised to be more take a better shape rather than just conceptual. And I think that our embarking on a sub-area plan for the Lakewood Station District, and the city manager has told me that it'll be, in a very short time, we'll be addressing the boundaries of that district and then moving forward with a process similar to what we did for the downtown that will paint a blueprint and a roadmap to make changes that'll benefit us to do that. So again, welcome to Linda Farmer to join us in our collective work, and I think we're poised to have a good year. Thank you.
Ms. Farmer.
Well, first of all, thank you for the very warm welcome and the orientation and everything that everybody has done to make me feel comfortable. It's I'm really quite excited for the next 4 years. I am a fan of Bliss Ice Cream Creamery over in UP and have had the chance to hire Teresa, one of the owners there, to come and do an event for my workplace. And we were hanging out there the other night, and I had a chance to pitch her husband Dave and say, hey, you ought to be in Lakewood. Please come to Lakewood. And they talked about some festivals, and I said, hey, we're starting this new night market. And they're like, I think we've been approached about that. I'm like, good, you should say yes. So here's hoping that we'll have some ice cream at our new night market, which I'm super excited about, by the way. That presentation was incredible by your staff and talking about all the cultural and our artistic activities that went on throughout the year. That was great. And last, I wanted to really send a shout out to the Parks Department and everybody who helped clean up after the cyclocross big thing. And I know that there were some complaints about how the park was all torn up. I took a walk there on New Year's Day, and it looked like it hadn't been touched. So it was just really great job. Thank you.
Mr. Simpson.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I sort of miss this place. And we were informed on the day after New Year's that our 15-year-old will be a page for Representative Kilduff. So I think I'm rather happy about that, and that does lead me now to my next question, since Representative Kilduff was mentioned during public comment. Mr. Caulfield, can remarks be stricken from the record when those remarks are not clearly related to city business as it says in our agenda? Because I found that speaker's remarks to be, it impugned the integrity of an elected official.
My advice to this body is when you have folks come up during public comment, is that they should be directing their comments to this body as a whole and not calling out individual members of either this body or others. And it's certainly the prerogative of this body to put a stop to that, either with a point of order or the chair can drop the hammer. As far as having, language stricken from the record, once somebody says something, it's on the record.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just note on that I have a slightly different take. If it gets particularly offensive, I have no problem dropping the hammer. But the First Amendment had its genesis in the fact that the colonists didn't like their inability to criticize the king. And I always say that at the heart of the First Amendment, whether we like it or not, is the ability to go to the public square and say the king's an idiot. So I have more problem saying something about a state representative who's not here than picking on our newest council member, or me. Come here and tell me I'm an idiot. And I signed up for it. But I have.
May I?
I have a high degree of tolerance for inappropriate comments.
And I take your
Plus,
point.
I had 3 years of legal training.
Yeah. So therefore, you're a target for these comments.
The criticism comes with the territory.
But then my only comeback to that would be, and all due respect, it's clearly stated in the agenda that it should be connected to city business. Impugning one's character is not the business of the city. Otherwise, I agree with everything you said.
Mr. Whalen.
I just want to say welcome back from the holidays. I had a nice time away. I found some great public art projects for the city manager in the city of New York City, so I'll be bringing those forward.
They kind of at the door of the Metropolitan Museum.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of the Arts Commission, I did attend their meeting today as their liaison, and I mentioned to you that they're putting forward some plans and recommendations on their work plan for 2020, including the the evening market, the summer concert series, and the public art project. So I appreciate your indulgence on that, and more to follow. Other than that, it's going to be a busy month, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're excited about it. I'm excited about it. I look forward to the team. I welcome Linda Farmer to the team and appreciate your voice and willingness to serve. So I look forward to a great year. Thank you.
I too like to welcome Linda. Look forward to working with you over the next 4 years. I hope everyone had a great Christmas, New Year's holiday season. Although today I was painfully aware of a fact that came up last week when I was taking a tour of Dodger Stadium. They've been having baseball games there for about 60 years, and they've had a total of 17 rainouts. We had enough rain today to account for all of those. There was a disparity, but I'm glad to be here instead of there. There's a great balance of things, and there's no doubt where I want to be. On Saturday evening, I attended an event, Commander's New Year's reception at the 2-2 Stryker Brigade headquarters. They did a really nice job. A lot of them with the same leadership team we had to the Thornwood Castle event, so there were a number of familiar faces. To Mr. Caulfield's comment about Bus Rapid Transit 2, I am, of course, your representative on the Pierce Transit Board, and they're tired of hearing about that. That BRT 2 is Lakewood's, and BRT 2 needs to punch through. Whether it's just jumping on the freeway and jumping off, but it needs to get to Springbrook, Woodbrook, Tillicum, and JBLM, because that's the natural extension, and that's the need for public transit right there. So I'll continue to beat on that drum. Speaking of which, on Thursday, I will endure another trip to Seattle, and endure is a carefully chosen word, to participate as a member of the Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Policy Board. A lot of that's taking up space, but you never know when they're going to try to do something to, the people from the north are going to try to do something new to the people from the south, so you have to go up there and watch your territory. And this week, I too plan on attending the change of command at 62nd Air Wing, and the First Corps. I guess it's also New Year's reception. Is there anything else to come before the council? Hearing none, I declare the meeting adjourned.